America First will get a load of this. A Democratic lawmaker is apparently proud to admit that she's putting her country last. Members of the squad and several House Democrats taking shots at the U.S. during a conference in Mexico City. But Illinois Representative Delia Ramirez is causing the most controversy. She said this.
I want to finish by saying a few words in Spanish because I am a Guatemalan with much pride before I am an American.
Representative Ramirez later tried to clean up that statement by saying this: only those who believe America should not include the children of immigrants or be diverse would attack me. Honoring my Guatemalan ancestry only strengthens my commitment to America. So the White House weighing in, saying that these Democrats' comments are despicable and underscore their commitment to putting Americans last. I always say, Emily, that Peter, my husband, is British by birth but American by choice. And he can be proud of Britain, though he's not at the moment. But you can be, but he chose to be an American, and she's a member of Congress.
That's the whole point. Messages matter. When my grandfather immigrated here, he had to renounce his citizenship to Italy to become an American citizen. And then he framed and hung his United States citizenship certificate on the walls in their home for the rest of his life. And I was thinking about that when I saw this segment. I thought, you know what, the message that one man, one immigrant sent, how proud he was to be a U.S. citizen, how proud he was to be here. Why can't an elected official have that same pride, even a little bit of that, when you are on the world stage? It sends a really bad message.
What do you think about this?
I think we need to believe them for who they are.
Yeah.
It's very popular to say, I hate America, because this is the only place in the world you can do that. You know, and then they try to clean it up. She didn't say that I'm a Guatemalan American,
right?
You know,
right.
and I love my heritage and I love my country. If you're a Guatemalan first, don't they have government jobs over there? Run over there. Why do you want to serve for a country you don't like? Like this, because there's never consequences for being able to say what you say things. And who are you preaching that to? Like, what person, was there a standing ovation after they say these speeches? They say things because they want, this is the beautiful thing about America, but it's also the ugly thing, is that you can have fake trauma. You can have virtue signaling oppression. You live in the greatest country in the world, so you can bash it all you want. Why? Because it's the greatest country in the world. She didn't come back to no job. She didn't step off a plane and ICE was waiting for her going, oh no, we're sending you back. She'll be allowed to do it. And she doesn't even have the courage or if you're going to say something, stand by it. Don't try to clean it up and say, I'm more of American because I said that.
Right.
It's like this whole thing, and as a minority, it's one of the most disgusting things to see and I'm not Hispanic, but whenever I see another minority trash the country that they benefit from so well just to get points to do it. Because if they told her she had to leave tomorrow, she'd be kicking and screaming, not packing her bags going, guess what, guys, we're going to Guatemala.
That's a great point. And I do think that the spin after the fact, Jesse, was hard to swallow.
Well, as a minority, I also agree with Tyrus.
Thank you.
And
I'm not holding your hand on that one.
And I take offense at the word when she says domination. Because great nations, empires, the British, the French, great empires, have always sought to seek advantages economically and militarily. It just so happens that because of the geography of Guatemala, they were never able to project power outside of their own borders, sadly, for them. That doesn't mean that they're not a good country. It doesn't mean she shouldn't be proud of her country. Of course she should be proud of Guatemala. They have the best coffee around, and we're going to have to be buying a lot of it because of the tariffs on Brazil, so get used to it. The Mayan Empire was absolutely spectacular. They dominated the entire region. A little brutal. We don't need to get into the details, but they were a very, very wealthy and academically advanced country. The Irish, the Germans, and the Italians were very proud of where they came from. But when they got here, they were also proud to be here. And they tried to assimilate. And as proud as they were of their countries that they originated from, they didn't denigrate the country they arrived in. And that's my problem. She's denigrating the country she's now living in and benefiting greatly from. So I think she should acknowledge that, yes, the United States has done some bad things, but it's also the greatest force of good in world history. No other country is as great as the United States. And she should acknowledge that. And if she doesn't, I'm calling home and she's going home.
Harold, the melting pot doesn't work if it's just oil and water and everyone lives separately in their own little pockets.
Agree. I could not agree more with Tyrus and Jesse. The stories we have today, this was the most disturbing for me. I said
Agreed.
something at the outset in the first segment that I want to retract. I said that Mr. Mandami ran as a socialist, he's a Democrat. These people are not Democrats. Democrats from the standpoint of political parties. Listening to this legislator from Illinois, you took an oath of office to serve in the United States Congress. Tyrus is right. If you feel so strong, and I have no issue or problem, matter of fact, I have no even really emotional response to you wanting to be Guatemalan first, but why not go back to Guatemala and fix the country as opposed to coming here? You chose to come to the country, and we'd happily let you go if you want to go, because there's a long line to come in of people who love our country, whose stories resemble a lot of the instincts that have been talked about around the table. It's amazing to me. You look at Illinois and you look at some of these places, Massachusetts and New York, where some of the progressives, the socialists serve in Congress. The story out today, we have more than 200,000 jobs in this country open today in the welding, electrician, and HVAC categories and spaces. People making hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. We're not talking about any of that. The president passed the big, beautiful bill. I was opposed to it. I don't see or hear any of these people offering legislation or ideas to build on his success or reverse what he's trying to do and make life better for the very people they serve. I was offended by watching her. It moved me in a way that I hadn't been moved watching a politician speak, not in English, and to say, she could say whatever she wanted to say about her heritage, but to talk bad about the country that she not only is a citizen of, but serves in our national legislature. Shame on that Congresswoman. And I retract what I said. Mr. Mandami's not a Democrat. He's a socialist.
Yep.
And as a Democrat, I don't accept that as part of my party.
President Trump says he's a communist. You want to take socialist and raise it
I'll
to
say
communist?
communist,
He's a
pure and
socialist.
simple.
He says he's a socialist.
All right, but he's a communist. All right, so ahead, Senator Tim Scott. He's got a new book that shares a powerful message about how faith shaped American history, and he joins us next.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.